The ILCA or laser is a tough boat generally. They're made out of quite solid construction, shall we say, um, and some will last many many years. There's plenty of boats that are 30, 40 years old that are still being raced very competitively at club level. However, sometimes the manufacturing, maybe there was a bit of a defect in it and the boat wasn't quite as strong as it should have been. Or maybe one of the boats got was owned and sailed quite hard by a previous owner. So there are a few things to look out for when you're buying a laser. And in this video, what I'm going to do is look at some of the big sort of, well, I'm going to look at loads of things to consider for laser buying, but also if you've got your own boat, just something to check. Right, the hulls first. Now, everything that isn't on the hull you can pretty much change, so it's not a big issue. With the hull, though, you're pretty much stuck with it. And to start with, we'll go for the deck, and that is really gets a bit hard to repair if anything's gone a bit wrong there. So if there are soft areas on the deck or some cracking, then it's probably best to avoid the boat. So places to really look at, first of all, there's the around the mast pot. Now you do get gel coat chipping quite often around the mast hole. If you look a little further away from that, if there are some cracks in the gel coat, indicative of something that's gone wrong a little bit further down, and very tricky to repair, so you probably want to avoid the boat. Other areas to look out for is around the side decks where people tend to sit. If they go soft, again, tricky to repair, maybe avoid the boat. And then looking inside the cockpit floor, if that's gone soft, not a good sign. Also look for sort of excessive cracking along the edge of the cockpit. You'll always get a few hairline cracks appearing there as boats get a little bit older, but if there's anything significant, again, maybe you want to give the boat a bit of a swerve. The last thing that would put me off buying a boat completely would be anything that's stuck down the mast hole. Get a torch, get that torchy thing up on your mobile phone, have a little look down there, see if there's anything in there. Get a bottom section, stick it into the mast hole. What you'll tend to find is a bottom section that's been used very quickly gets a little bit of wear around where it sits at deck level. It's very obvious where it should sit. If you put it in and it's a little bit high of there, basically there's something in the bottom of that mast hole. It's nigh on impossible to get out, so it gets ground into the fiberglass down there. Run away, that's not the boat for you. Apart from that, there isn't really anything that is super critical on a laser. Other things that you want to check for, while we've got the boat the right way up, have a look around the gunnels. It's an area that does get bashed quite often. A bit of a bash isn't too much of a problem with a laser. It is fairly easy to fix. And gel coat chunks out of the gunnel, again, not too tricky to fix. Something to look for is, while you are scanning around the gunnels, is little bubbles appearing. That's osmosis, often caused by having a poor quality cover. So something that isn't breathable leads to those. It's something that's difficult to repair over a large area, so if there is a lot of it, then maybe not the boat for you. Right, now turn the boat upside down. Let's have a look at the bottom. So the probably big area to look for is that seam between the deck and the hull. Now it does tend to split on lasers, especially older boats, and this is partly due to sort of age and sort of deterioration of that bonding compound, but often, and probably more common, is older trolleys that didn't quite fit into the gunnels, causes stress on them, and then they split. So look around the area where the trolley goes. On more recent lasers, there's actually some gel coat over that gap. That stops water seeping into that bonding paste, seems to make it stronger. I don't come across many boats, if any, that have split along there. Also, more recent trolleys tend to fit a lot better, but do have a look, any splitting, but also while you're there, check that the trolley actually fits the boat. While you've got your boat upside down, have a really careful look along the hull. Look for sort of scratches. So a couple of little scratches and some chunks out of the transom. Not a big problem, fairly easy to fix. Large areas of scratching, a little bit harder. Also look for evidence of previous sort of sanding down of scratched areas that you're going to need to fare or that have actually thinned the gel coat. So be mindful of those. While you're looking, look for any sort of dents in the hull. If it's been stored badly, you may get some little dents and divots. That's if you're not looking for performance, that's not going to be a problem. If you are, then probably look for another boat. Other little areas to look for, some little hairline cracks running from the daggerboard. You are going to get a few, especially as a boat's a bit older. There'll be a few short ones. However, if there's some really long hairline cracks, that could be an indication that the boat has been abused a bit in the past. Often I see those in conjunction with cracks around the mast pot. Say a boat has been, when it's capsized, someone's been righting it a bit too vigorously, and it's caused some damage around the hull there. And last bit to have a look at is the bailer on a laser. It is pretty changeable, so it doesn't matter too much, but it is nice to just see, does it sit flush with the deck and does it open and close? And onto the other bits that come with a laser. The spars are quite critical. Check that they're straight, especially the top section does tend to get bent. Give that a little test. Bottom section, the ILCA 6 and 7 can bend, not very common. The ILCA 4 is meant to be bent, so don't worry about that. With a boom, a little bit of a bend in isn't an issue, but things to look for on the boom and the lower mast are the fittings. Is there salt corrosion around where they're riveted in? If it's a lot and if they wiggle a bit, then that's something you need to factor in, that you may have to be repairing that in the future. Onto the foils, have a good look at the condition of those. The older rudders and daggerboards made of foam, they do tend to suffer from getting chunks knocked out of them and getting slightly warped. So have a close look to see if they're in good condition. More recent GRP ones tend to be pretty good. Gel coat and fiberglass chips and knocks out of those can be fixed fairly easily. Something to look for though, and I've seen it a couple of times on the laser all white daggerboards, is some quite large areas of bubbling just appearing, and that's the core is made of sort of honeycomb foam, and it seems to expand the air in that. So possibly if it's been left next to a heat source, definitely worth having a little look for those. Other thing to check while you're looking at the foils, put the rudder on the back of the boat, put the tiller in, and just check that it steers easily and the tiller isn't knocking on the traveller cleat. Last bit there to look for is the fittings on the boat. The most can be easily upgraded. The bit that costs quite a lot is the kicker fitting. The Harken one is far superior to anything else, so just definitely worth trying to find a boat with a Harken kicker or factoring in the cost of a new one. Everything else fairly easily and fairly cheaply upgraded. The sails, a newer sail is going to be worth more than an older sail. They do deteriorate, so as they get stretched, the shape goes. They don't point as high. They're harder to sail. So newer sail definitely better. There's also various models of sails. So the ILCA 6 has had about 5 or 6 different variations and designs to it. The more recent one is the better one to go for. With the ILCA 7, the latest Mark II is going to be more desirable than an older one. Other bits to look for: trolley, make sure it fits the gunnel. Cover, if it's a cheap plastic one, that can cause osmosis. Look for a breathable cover. That is going to be a lot better for your boat. Other bits that can be quite nice, things like spar holders, foil bags, always nice to have, but not essential. So how much you pay for the laser really depends on what the sort of condition it is and the kit it comes with. There's little bashes, slight fiberglass damage on a laser. Actually wouldn't put me off too much because it's relatively easy to repair. What would put me off, things that are wrong with the deck and the top side, those are issues. And for me, actually, I wouldn't want a boat that's particularly scratched. That's actually harder to get the boat back to a good finish than it is to repair a small area of gel coat or sort of fiberglass damage. But again, it's up to you. Also look at all the bits that it comes with, things like the fittings. Have a look at the mast. If you've got a carbon top section, that's definitely worth a fair bit more than sort of the aluminium ones. And also consider the manufacturer of the kit. If you want to use your boat anything beyond club racing, then you'll need to have ILCA or laser approved kit. So do look for those little stickers that tell you that it is class legal and you can use it at class sanctioned racing. It also assures you that the quality of it is going to be fairly good, especially sails. There's some of the replica kit out there is not of the best quality and not going to be quite as nice to sail with. Okay, hopefully that's been good. That's reasonably long list, but I'm sure there's quite a few things that I've forgotten. So if there's anything else that I should have put in, do pop it down in the comments below. Then anyone coming to this video can look at the comments and get a few other ideas. Okay, happy sailing. See you on the water soon.